We are at the base of Mount Rainier in the state of Washington, one of the most beautiful places in this country, one that you would never believe could encounter violence.
This is going to be reference case number 16-6893. I would like to...
We have a 20-year-old kid who's being interviewed and interrogated about a very dangerous killer.
So let's start from the beginning.
I thought he's just going to come pick me up, and then we're going to go beat someone's ass.
Humans are capable of terrible things, and they're capable of that with little or no motivation.
He had a crazy look on his face.
He has decided.
All of a sudden, I heard 4 gunshots.
You have a person who acts out of instinct. His instinct is to kill. How dangerous is that? About as dangerous as you can get. I spent my career closing murder cases. But I'm not the only one. It takes a rare breed to solve the unsolvable, to catch a ruthless killer, to find justice for the dead. That's what it takes to be an American detective.
A major crimes detective for Thurston County Sheriff's Office, located in Olympia, Washington. I had a law enforcement career for over 28 years. I always liked being challenged. Most people don't have that opportunity to see the real evil in society. But as a law enforcement officer, you had the challenge to figure out who did it and hold them accountable.
A woman who lives on a ranch calls the Thurston County Sheriff's Department to report that her boyfriend has been missing for 3 days. Detective Elkins responds to the call. This woman is Tina Inman. Her boyfriend is Clark Calhoun on this ranch.
Hi. Following up on your missing persons report.
My dad came to work on this ranch, had some hard times in life. The owners of the ranch were friends, and so they saw an opportunity to help him get back on his feet.
My dad was no stranger to the farm life and to taking care of the animals and repairing things that needed to be repaired. He was some
employment. He's given a space to park his trailer. So he has a trailer he lives in and is kept there on the property at no charge to Mr. Calhoun.
The ownership of the property was a brotherly partnership, but the one brother that lived on it owned most of the property, and then the other brother, Joel.
Property. It was pushing 200 acres between the two of them. When's the last time you saw Clark?
3 days ago.
Miss Inman explains that on the 28th of December, she, Mr. Calhoun, and another friend, Randy, were intending to go shopping in the evening. When Jeremy Leninger, son of one of the 2 brothers that owns the place, came up on a tractor and stopped them.
Hey, Clark.
Yeah.
He asked Clark to stay behind and help build some fences.
So Clark goes with Jeremy off to do this work, and Miss Inman and her friend Randy
Clark? Mom?
Miss Inman returns quite late from her shopping trip.
Clark?
But Clark isn't there. So the next morning, when she wakes up, Clark and by the morning of the 3rd day, she decides to report this to the police.
Does Clark carry a cell phone?
No, he uses mine. He just wouldn't do something like this. I mean, he even left his wallet there.
She says, the only thing that isn't here is a turquoise and silver ring that he often wears. You're missing. Maybe it's somebody who's been done away with.
I just know something bad has happened to him.
As an investigator, there's always these things called indicators. And when I interviewed Tina, I didn't pick up on any indicators that she was involved in any foul play.
Did Clark have any enemies? Is anybody out to get him?
Not really.
But there was something a few days ago that struck her as very odd. She says one of the owners mentioned to her that Jeremy, the son of the owners, had complained to her that he was missing $150, and he believed that Clark had taken this money from his truck.
Tina never indicated that Clark used it for groceries or whatever.
Okay, Tina. Here's my card. If you think of anything else.
Elkins, of course, wants to have confirmation of what Inman has to say. You cannot rely on a single source. So Elkins runs down Randy, the friend who was in the car when Clark and Inman were going to go shopping.
Excuse me, Randy. Yeah. Detective Elkins, you got a minute to speak with me?
He explains to Randy that Clark has been missing now for 3 days, and he wants to know what he recalls about the night he went missing.
3 of us were getting ready to go in town. Jeremy came and grabbed Clark, needed help doing something.
Both their statements were transpired.
Elkins then asks Randy, has there been any confrontations with anyone that you're aware of?
No, everybody's getting along just fine here.
I understand that Jeremy thought Clark stole some money from him.
Nah, that's news to me.
Randy said they have no issues between them. So there's still this lingering question of where did this accusation come from floating around out there?
So the next person to interview was Jeremy Linenger.
Jeremy's the last person that was seen with Clark, so antennas started to go up.
Jeremy.
Are conducting a field interview. You want to put this person on your turf, your ground, not theirs.
Why don't we speak in the car? It's cold out. Okay.
You invite him into your office that happens to have 4 wheels and an engine. It's as efficient as a building and a hell of a lot quicker.
So the 28th of December, what?
Started stringing some barbed wire along Jerry's fence.
And then Clark says, I've got to meet somebody out at the gate. There's somebody coming to see me.
You say who?
No, he just said, I'm going to go meet a friend down at the gate.
Now, Jeremy introduces Mr.X into this conversation. Somebody comes to see our missing person. So who is Mr.X and why would he?
When I seen him, no one saw him the rest of the night.
All right. And then tell me about the money being stolen from your truck.
I had $80 in the glove box. Someone took it. They got lost.
Okay. Did you talk to Clark about it?
No. I just figured it was gone.
Jeremy downplayed it, that it was no big deal, and problem between him or Clark. All right. Anything else you need?
No, she can leave me with a business card.
Jeremy's cooperative, friendly, reports he has nothing to hide. After Elkins interviews him, he's back to square one. Where is Mr. Calhoun? And what condition is he in?
There was concern that maybe something had happened where he died. And easily, if somebody would have been out in the elements, they could have easily got hypothermia and passed out or whatever.
So just as a guard against any other possibilities, he organizes a search party.
We spent several hours on the property, going everywhere. We were able to coordinate with a rescue dog organization to come out to the property with our unit.
Miss Inman provides these dogs with some of Calhoun's clothing, which contain his scent. A dog has an olfactory sense 600 times greater than a human. They can pick up a scent in the air.
Unfortunately, we were unable to find Clark.
No blood, no clothing, no nothing. It's just not there. and neither is Mr. Calhoun.
I had suspicions that something happened that could have been foul play, but I didn't know what yet. Person bulletin.
We began to put up a missing persons poster all over town.
Putting up the flyers for my dad really made things a reality. It really made things sink in that something was terribly wrong.
Missing persons generally are found relatively quickly. If they're not found quickly, they didn't come home because they can't. Now it's weeks later, and 2 environmental scientists are doing water samples 2 counties away from Thurston County. They noticed something half submerged in the bottom mud flow in a river. And half buried in this silt is the body of a Caucasian male. They notify the
My name is Detective Lorenzo Gladson. I've been a detective for the last 6 years with the Calais County Sheriff's Office. Our first goal was to identify who this person was.
The detectives down there were aware of our missing person bolo that Ben Elkins had put out.
The guy.
He sees a silver and turquoise ring on one hand. Well, my. How'd you get here from 2 counties away? So Gladson calls Detective Elkins in Thurston County SO and says, man, Clark Calhoun.
Hey, Gladson. Hey. What do we got here?
His body is pretty dirty with mud. He was not wearing any socks or shoes.
There was no evidence that week down until he'd been found.
How did he get in the middle of this river? Was he drunk? Did he have a heart attack and die and fell in the river? What happened to him? There's a long list.
At that point, we made arrangements to respond down to Cowles County Coroner's Office. And
from drifting down the river, he's going to have some injuries. He was hung up on rocks, so yeah, he's going to have some scrapes and scratches.
But when that silt is removed with a hose, it becomes rather obvious how he got in that river. He's got 2 large caliber gunshot wounds. That'll do it.
At that point, we realized that the body was likely dumped in the river, that this was not just a death investigation, but a homicide.
Understand that bodies are very difficult to dispose of, and it'll just float away. It'll go to Mexico. It'll go to Japan. We got to get rid of this body. We got to get rid of it right now. Emotion takes over judgment in those circumstances.
in Clark's body, the doctor did find a bullet.
We measured end round. The significance of the .45 caliber round being removed from Clark was that if we were able to later develop a suspect, we know that we're looking for a .45 caliber gun associated with that suspect.
We actually had a case where we had another homicide and we had a bullet that was retrieved from the victim. And we had information that that same type gun had been used in target practice, and we were able to, and they matched. So it helped make the case. We were hoping, to be able to find a bullet that would be in pristine condition, on the property. We now had additional leads to follow up on.
So this is the worst possible turnout of a missing persons case. Not only deceased, not only dead, but murdered. You have to tell his family.
At my dad's core, he was a good, caring, loving person. And he was amazing when I was little. But because of my dad's choices, a lot of my family had been estranged for many years.
Yeah, I gotcha.
My dad had been through some ups and downs back. I saw a hope for him to get his life back in a direction that was more healthy for himself and for our family.
My brother's goal was to get closer to family and try to reconnect with his children.
We made plans for my husband and I to take our kids to see him on. Well, there is no way that he would have missed a chance to see me and his grandkids.
Deep down, I had always hoped that I would have my dad back in my life. But at the same time, it brought peace knowing that he could be brought home and laid to rest. And it felt like we were going to start getting answers at that point.
Investigations change their personality as they proceed, but everything emanates from a 100-acre farm at the base of Mount Rainier. There is Jeremy Leninger, the son of the owners. There's Randy X at the front gate. They're on this little lazy Susan in the middle of this table. Who's sitting in this lazy Susan is responsible for making Mr. Calhoun collect silt in the river.
Now and go back to the ranch, re-interview, and talk to everybody.
With Jeremy being the last person that had been seen with Clark, Jeremy became a real person of interest. He lived with his mother and father at the time.
Joel and Karen Kane, Jeremy's parents, who are half owners in the property, live in close proximity to where this body was discovered.
Thank you.
We were able to get a search warrant.
With Jeremy being the last person seen with Clark, we were really searching Jeremy's address. It just happened to be owned by his dad. Jeremy was not at home at the time.
I participated in the search warrant of Jeremy Leininger's home.
To Joel and Karen's house, Karen was told it was regarding Clark missing.
What do you mean he's missing?
Karen knew Clark from the ranch, but Karen didn't know that Clark was found with 2 bullet holes in him and presumed to have been murdered.
My husband told me that he moved to California.
California.
Gladson's thought was, unless California is in the middle, no wonders, why would her husband, Joel, tell her he just moved away?
Oh, well, I'm sorry to tell you he's not in California. We found his body down by the river.
You could see on her face, her demeanor was thinking, well, how can that be?
They inform her they have a search warrant for the premises, and they're searching for a handgun.
Step aside, please, ma'am.
At the time they were executing the search warrant, they hear Karen, his wife, call Joel and say, your buddies from Thurston County are here.
She obviously was not happy for us being there.
Your ass off my property. Please calm down, sir.
While and somebody screaming out towards the driveway.
What the hell's going on here? Trespassing.
Joel comes rolling in to his property.
And here is Joel going out of his mind, ordering the police out of his home. They have no right.
Get your ass off my property. Wait right there. You got no right to be here.
When a detective, he got very angry.
You wonder, why would somebody do that? What are you afraid we're going to find in this house?
Get the hell away from me.
So the deputy grabbed a hold of Joel Leininger's wrist, trying to detain him, and the struggle ensued.
Trespassing. Hey, get the hell away from me. Don't you touch me.
People believe they know their rights. I will if they went to law school.
Sergeant placing you under arrest for obstruction of justice.
A search warrant's been issued for the premise. It is the order of the court. It doesn't matter what you think or what you believe. It takes 5 deputies to control him and put him in a police car.
After Joel Leininger was detained, we
If you have somebody that's cooperating with a search warrant, well, they don't have anything to hide. But generally, folks that are worried are the ones that react negatively when law enforcement's present at their home.
Hey, detective, come check this out.
We searched and found an empty. That magazine contained 45 caliber ammunition consistent with the 45 caliber round that was removed from Clark Calhoun.
So what was in that holster is most likely the murder weapon. They ask the wife, Karen, whose bedroom is this, assuming she's going to say it's Jeremy's bedroom.
Whose room is this?
Joel's.
This is Joel's.
That raises an eyebrow. So this is Joel's bedroom, and there's this empty holster. And now we have Joel outside the house going absolutely out of his mind that they're searching the place.
That kind of raises flags where now are we looking at Joel as a person that killed Clark?
It doesn't take Sherlock Holmes to decide that there's something here. So they bring Joel in to the sheriff's department because he's in custody, and he has calmed down to some degree.
This is a complete waste of time. I don't even know why you have me down here.
Ladson explains that they have found Mr. Calhoun. He is a victim of a homicide.
Well, the problem is Clark Calhoun was shot with a 45.
His residence that he would have access to, no gun.
So how do you explain that, Joel?
I haven't seen that gun in months. I reported him missing back in September.
We searched and found a record of Leininger reporting his 45 caliber handgun as missing in September of 2016.
When Joel was arrested, it was strictly for the any factual information to be able to do anything in regards to detaining or charging Joel with any crime. All we had was what we called skinny evidence.
I'm loose.
Joel posted bail immediately for obstructing a law enforcement officer and resisting arrest, and then was released.
Joel now could be our primary suspect, but we still haven't identified who killed Clark. It could be anybody at this point.
In a murder case, you're investigating total darkness. You're punching in the dark. You want somebody to say, ouch. If somebody says, ouch, then you shine a light. So as you learn more about the dynamics and more interview people from a different perspective, Elkins decides to re-interview Randy, the friend who was in the car when Clark and Inman and Randy were going to go shopping.
Hey, Randy.
Hey, what can I do for you?
This time, Elkins is armed with more facts.
You happen to remember anything strange leading up to the days before Clark?
Now that you mention it, yeah, the other night. How about that?
Randy shared that before Clark went missing, he was with Jeremy and a friend of his identified as Tyler.
Randy goes on to report that Tyler was talking about burying dead cows on the property.
Then, I don't know, Tyler kind of got a little weird. I remember Tyler saying,
"You could probably bury a body out there too. Nobody would ever know."
Well, that's a pretty interesting conversation 2 days before Mr. Calhoun goes missing and winds up murdered. Now, he wasn't in a grave, but dead he was.
We're wondering now, maybe Tyler had some direct involvement in regards to the murder of Clark.
So Elkins has to talk to Tyler Frazier. What about this conversation you had at this party?
What I'm trying to do, Tyler, is find out exactly what happened to Clark Calhoun.
Oh, what happened to the dude?
But you work with him on the ranch.
Yeah, sometimes.
He indicated he did know Clark, that he was friends with Jeremy, and that he would occasionally work on the property in Rainier, but denied any involvement or any knowledge of what we were talking about.
Tyler says he was with his girlfriend and never left his place the day that Calhoun went missing.
You don't.
What? That wasn't me.
He indicated that the conversations were between Randy and Jeremy.
You know, you could probably bury a body out there, too. Nobody'd ever know.
You're crazy, man.
Man, John.
Tyler says some map was brought out, and they were actually comparing locations on that property where...
After talking to Frazier, realizes that Randy lied to him, directly and thoughtfully lied. That he was having that conversation about burying dead things and not Mr. Frazier.
So when someone does that, it makes you think as an investigator that they're trying to hide something.
In fact, lying is always a bad thing. Why would you lie to me? What else are you lying? Elkins is preparing to summon Randy for another interview when Randy shows up in his office. When it comes to murder, best friends are meaningless.
I'm a little surprised you wanted to see me, Randy.
Yeah, I got something I got to get off my chest.
Oh. Elkins likes it when somebody has to get something off their chest. Thing for the police, an extremely useful thing.
I told you that Clark and Jeremy, they didn't have any problems with each other. Well, that wasn't entirely true.
Randy directly and specifically lied to Elkins because he was afraid he'd lose his job, he'd lose what little life he had.
And he shared with us that Jeremy flat out did not like, possibly hated Clark for many reasons. Jeremy pretty much felt that Clark was taking advantage of his uncle and that he was basically living on the property for free, not having to pay for anything.
Toss the smoke and help us out, okay? You all right? Do something.
Lazy. Clark refused to work around the ranch. On and on and on.
Randy emphasized that this negative relationship between the both of them had been going on for quite a while.
And right before Clark went missing, Jeremy, he just going on and on about how Clark stole money from him.
Was more than angry. Jeremy was wild about the missing money from his truck. Jeremy was convinced that Clark is the one who stole it.
Did he? I don't know.
We never did identify for sure if Clark stole any money from Jeremy.
Jeremy is convincing himself of all the reasons, most of which are invented.
I had a few questions to Jeremy.
Once Randy shared this with us, we tried to talk to Jeremy another time. He declined to provide any statements.
People run from the police. They climb. They're like animals. Where are you going? Stairway to Heaven is a song. There is no escape.
We had all circumstantial evidence. The problem is that may not be enough to establish probable cause to arrest and get a conviction. We needed something concrete. Detective Gladstone had phoned me and indicated that 2 people had come forth and had some information about the involvement of Jeremy.
The 2 people were tenants of Joe Leininger. They lived on the same property, and they were friends with Jeremy Leininger.
So what's going on with Jeremy?
We decided to split, and I interviewed a female witness.
We had a party up at our house that Friday. I just knew I was hearing stuff that I didn't want to hear or believe. Jeremy was crying, he was sulking.
Then Jeremy told me what he did. Which is what? He shot him.
A direct confession. Secrets. People suffer from diarrhea of the mouth. They always have, and they always will.
And it's getting you excited because now you got witnesses that Jeremy conversed with and told them that he killed Clark.
Is it enough to arrest him? Not really. But Elkins has another card up his sleeve. He gets a warrant for Jeremy's cell phone.
Big Brother is real. Your phone is never off. And so if you keep your phone on you, we'll find you. It's that simple.
Elkins gets telephone records, and what does he discover? Jeremy's phone moves between all the points and the site where the body is dumped.
Also, we were able to ping the towers. And one of the things that the ping showed was that Jeremy stopped at a friend's house, and that friend was identified as John Perry.
He's at John's house for approximately 20 minutes before the two head back north to the birds mirrored each other.
Both phones are together and go exactly through the ranch, and then are found going out Rose Valley, which is out towards the river in Cowlitz County.
Yeah, they probably should leave their phone at home. Unfortunately, most criminals aren't very swift. So now we were looking at John Perry as the co-conspirator at minimum.
Elkins needs to put Jeremy over his head. Perry is going to have some information that's going to crucify Jeremy. Elkins has the same group of players he's had from the beginning, but it's finally starting to straighten out. Jeremy Leninger is most likely the person responsible.
John Perry was the last piece that we needed because, everything else was hearsay and circumstantial. And John Perry, he was there.
I located John at an apartment complex in Longview, Washington.
Mr. Perry, I'm here to speak with you about Jeremy Leninger. And
He says, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know anything about that.
all right. Just come out here. We're going to take you in for questioning.
He denied a lot of things, but we had enough to arrest him for that crime as being a co-conspirator of a homicide.
He was booked in the Thurston County Jail on $250,000 bail. He knew he was facing significant time.
All right, I am Detective Elkins, Thurston County Sheriff's Office. My understanding is you wanted to provide a statement regarding the incident where Clark Calhoun was murdered.
Yes. I know I don't want to be a part of this because I wasn't a part of this. I didn't have no choice in this. I'm not doing someone else's time.
That makes sense.
And Mr. Perry says,
was when the case blew open.
So let's start from the beginning. Okay, you ready to start?
Yes.
He had indicated exactly what his involvement was and what transpired. At some point in time, Jeremy was fed up. He was done with Clark.
Jeremy is the person with the smallest motive in the world. That turns into an overwhelming desire to kill him. So what does Jeremy do? He needs the means to get rid of Clark. Well, his dad's got the means, a .45 automatic. And eventually he gets enough nerve to use it.
Hey, Clark.
Yeah.
It's a hole in the fence over the northeast side.
Clark Calhoun walks into a death trap without knowing it.
Thanks for your help, Clark. Want to come smoke some weed with my buddy John and I real quick?
Yeah, I'm always down for that.
Hop in.
I was at my house, chilling in my bed. Jeremy, he sent me a text saying that I thought he's just going to come pick me up and then we're going to go beat someone's ass and get his money back.
What happened next?
Jumped into the back of his truck.
In the back bed of the truck? Or
No, like in the back seat.
was anybody else with him?
There was a dude in the passenger seat.
Okay, who was that?
That was Clark.
Clark who?
I don't know his name. I thought it was one of his buddies. I was up at his family's property. We were having a family gathering.
Okay, was anybody else there?
No. It's just me, Jeremy, and Clark.
What was the interaction between Jeremy and Clark and yourself?
They didn't really talk at all. Like, he just seemed agitated.
Who did?
Jeremy. He just seemed pissed off. We just kept on driving, and then he stops, and then he's like, everyone get out, and let's smoke a bowl. We jump out, we go to the back of the truck, and then Jeremy told me to go back in the truck and grab the weed.
So, not this again.
Then all of a sudden, I heard 4 gunshots. Boom, 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 boom.
And when he turned, Clark was on the ground and Jeremy was holding a gun.
Then I jumped back out. I was like, what did you just do? And I looked down. I looked at Jeremy. He had a crazy look on his face.
What did you do? Help me pick this guy up, will you? No.
I was like, I don't want no part of this. I'm not going to pick up that body. So he grabbed the rope and tarp from the back of the truck, tied his legs, and he tied Woods.
So he drugged the body to an area of the farm where they had a backhoe that he was able to lift Clark's body in the bucket of the backhoe and then deposit him in the back of his truck.
They went southbound on I-5. They proceeded down to Cowweeman River.
He jumps on the back ops from the back of the truck to the ground, and he just rolled him to the side, and then he just hucks him off the side.
Jeremy believes no one will ever know what happened to Clark. Oh, I don't think so.
What happened to the gun?
I don't know about that.
Weapon.
No ballistics, none of that. But we have the statement of a helper. We have all the other circumstances that go with it.
All this information was more than enough to establish that probable cause, where the prosecutor agreed, yes, we now have probable cause to arrest Jeremy. He was arrested in Cowlitz County jail, and at no time did he cooperate with law enforcement.
The result of that is that he is convicted of the crime of murder and received a sentence of 18 years in the Washington State Penitentiary for his crime. John Perry pleads guilty and is sentenced to 12 months in prison.
As far as a lot of the details in how my brother was murdered, I really tried to distance myself with a lot of that because at that point, there's nothing I can do to change what had happened. My brother's not coming back.
He was just kind and gentle and a teddy bear.
I know my dad's in heaven, and I know he's watching me and my kids. And I know he knows that I love him deeply. But I wish I would have had the opportunity to tell him that at one point in my life.
I do wish I could convey that through this tragedy, we've been made stronger. I'm incredibly grateful for Detective Elkins and the personal attention that he gave to our family.
Nobody wants to have a family member murdered, but to have someone held accountable, it's nice because I truly believe Jeremy was evil.
Elkins stood in Calhoun's shoes because he couldn't anymore. He became his voice, like all homicide detectives all over this country every day. There was a poem written once about it. It says, I have been where you fear to be. I have gone where you fear to go. I have seen things you don't wish.
Shadow of Rainier, the Silent Ranch. Prologue, the mountain's witness. The mountain did not care. Mount Rainier sat upon the horizon like a sleeping god, its white-capped peak indifferent to the life scrambling in its shadow. To the tourists stopping for photos on Highway 706, it was a majestic monument of nature, a postcard of the Pacific Northwest's ethereal beauty. But to Detective Ben Elkins, the mountain was something else entirely. It was a witness that never spoke. It was a vast, cold expanse of rock and ice that had swallowed more secrets than he cared to count. We are at the base of this silent giant in Thurston County, Washington. It is a place where the emerald majesty of the evergreen forest clashes with the harsh realities of rural isolation. Here, beauty and violence dance a dangerous tango. The mist that rolls off the Nisqually River can hide a sunrise just as easily as it can hide a body.
Reference case number 16 to 6,893. Elkins muttered to himself, the recorder in his hand feeling heavier than usual. He sat in his unmarked cruiser, the engine idling, fighting the morning chill. Human beings, they are capable of terrible things. And they don't need much motivation. Sometimes, just a whisper is enough. Elkins had spent 28 years wearing the badge. He was a man etched by the job. Lines of fatigue and cynicism carved around his eyes. But beneath that weathered exterior lay a hunter's instinct that refused to dull. He knew the smell of a lie. He knew the metallic taste of adrenaline, and as he looked out at the sprawling 200-acre ranch before him, investigating a missing person report that felt wrong from the very first phone call, he knew something else. He knew that evil wasn't a monster under the bed. Evil was usually just a man, standing in a field, smiling at you while wiping his hands on a rag. Chapter 1. The Vanishing. The rain in Washington doesn't always fall. Sometimes it just hangs in the air, a pervasive dampness that seeps into the marrow of your bones. It was under this gray, weeping sky that Tina Inman stood on the porch of the trailer, her arms wrapped tight around her chest. The ranch was vast, a sprawling kingdom of mud and fence lines owned by two brothers. It was the kind of place a man went to get lost or to get found. Clark Calhoun had come here for the latter. He wouldn't just leave, Tina said, her voice trembling, fracturing like thin ice. Not without his wallet. Not without me. Detective Elkins stood on the bottom step, water dripping from the brim of his hat. He took a slow look around the property. It was a working farm, chaotic and muddy. Tractors, feed bags, the lowing of cattle in the distance. It smelled of wet earth and manure, the scent of life, but Elkins was looking for the scent of death. Walk me through it again, Miss Inman, Elkins said, his voice a low rumble, calm and grounding. The last time you saw him. Tina took a shaky breath. It was the 28th. 3 days ago. We were happy, Detective. Clark. He's had a hard life. We all have. But he was fixing it. He was working hard here. The owners, they were friends. They let us park the trailer here, let Clark work off the rent. He was fixing fences, tending the animals. He was proud of it. She gestured to the empty space where a pickup truck should have been, then to the muddy driveway leading up to the main house. We were going to town, she continued, tears welling in her eyes. Me, Clark, and our friend Randy. We were going shopping. Just a normal night. But then he drove up. Who? Jeremy? Tina spat the name out as if it tasted like bile. Jeremy Leninger, the owner's son. Elkins scribbled the name in his notebook. Leninger, a prominent name on the deed. And what did Jeremy want? He was on his tractor. He pulled up and stopped us. He said, "Hey, Clark, I need help with some fences." Just like that. Commanding. Clark was a good guy. He couldn't say no. He told us to go ahead, said he'd catch up later. The wind picked up, rustling the heavy fir trees that lined the property. I went shopping, Tina whispered. I came back late. I called out for him. Clark, I'm home. But the trailer was dark, cold. I waited all night. I waited the next morning. His wallet is on the dresser. His phone, he uses mine. He has nothing with him, Detective, nothing. Elkins looked past her, into the dark interior of the trailer. It was a humble abode, the kind of place people lived when they were holding on to society by their fingertips. Did he have enemies, Tina? No, she shook her head vehemently. Clark was a sweetheart. He was trying to reconnect with his kids. He was. She paused, a flicker of hesitation crossing her face. Elkins caught it. What is it? A few days ago, she murmured. looking toward the main house on the hill, a structure that loomed over their trailer like a feudal lord's castle. One of the owners mentioned something. Jeremy. He was complaining. He said he was missing $150 from his truck. He accused Clark of taking it. $150? Elkins repeated. In his line of work, people killed for millions, and people killed for the change in a pocket. The amount didn't matter. The disrespect did. Clark didn't take it, Tina said fiercely. He wouldn't. But Jeremy is different. He has a temper. He holds on to things. Elkins closed his notebook with a snap. Thank you, Tina. I'm going to look into this. Here's my card. You call me if you remember anything. Anything at all. As he walked back to his car, Elkins felt the first prickle of the hairs on the back of his neck. A missing man. A wallet left behind. A rich son accusing the hired help of theft. It was a classic narrative, almost too classic. But Elkins knew that in the silence of the ranch, the simplest stories often hid the darkest endings. Chapter 2. The Storyteller. To solve a puzzle, you have to collect all the pieces, even the ones that don't seem to fit. Elkins needed to verify Tina's story. He tracked down Randy, the third wheel on that fateful night. Randy was skittish. He had the look of a man who spent his life looking over his shoulder, shifting eyes, hands buried deep in pockets, shoulders hunched against the world. Detective Elkins introduced himself, leaning against the hood of his car, keeping the posture relaxed, non-threatening. Just need a minute, Randy. I don't know where he is, Randy said quickly. Too quickly. We were just gonna go shopping. I know, Randy, Tina told me. I just need to confirm the timeline. You, Tina, and Clark. December 28th. Yeah, Randy nodded, kicking at a loose rock. We were heading out. Jeremy rolled up on the tractor, said he needed help. Clark stayed behind. That's it. That's the last time I saw him. Did they argue? Elkins asked, his eyes drilling into Randy. Jeremy and Clark? No way. Randy forced a laugh that sounded like dry leaves crunching. Everybody gets along fine on the ranch. It's all peace and love, man. I heard there was a dispute over money. $150? Randy froze for a microsecond, a hesitation so slight only a veteran would catch it. Then he shrugged. An exaggerated motion. News to me. Like I said, no issues. Elkins let the silence stretch. He let it become uncomfortable. He watched Randy squirm. All right, Randy. Thanks for your time. Driving away, Elkins tapped the steering wheel. Liar, he thought. Randy was terrified. But of what or whom? The road led back to the Leninger property. It was time to meet the man at the center of the sudden work request. Jeremy Leninger. Jeremy was young, in his 20s, with the cocky stride of a man walking on land he would one day inherit. He agreed to talk, but not in the house. He suggested Elkins' car. Office on wheels, Elkins quipped, unlocking the passenger door. Come on in. It was a tactic. Put the suspect in your environment. A car is intimate, claustrophobic. Nowhere to look but at the cop. Jeremy slid in. He didn't look nervous. He looked bored. So, the 28th, Elkins started. You asked Clark to help with fences? Yeah, Jeremy said, picking at a fingernail. We worked for a bit. Then Clark said he had to go. Go where? He didn't have a car. He said he had to meet someone down at the gate, Jeremy said, looking Elkins dead in the eye. A friend. Elkins raised an eyebrow. A friend? Did he give a name? No, just said he was meeting a buddy. Hopped in a car and left. Mr.X, Elkins thought. The mysterious stranger. It was the oldest play in the book. Whenever a husband killed a wife or a partner killed a partner, there was always a mysterious stranger seen fleeing the scene. Okay, Elkins said, keeping his tone neutral. And what about the money? The $150 you thought he stole? Jeremy waved a hand dismissively. Oh, that was nothing. I was annoyed, sure, but it wasn't a big deal. Clark and I were cool. I wouldn't hurt a fly over pocket change. Jeremy was smooth, too smooth. He was cooperative, friendly, and offered nothing of substance. He had introduced a phantom into the equation, a mystery man at the gate. Elkins watched Jeremy walk back up the driveway to the big house. The young man walked with a swagger, a defiance. He's lying, Elkins whispered to the rain-streaked windshield. And he thinks he's smarter than me. Chapter 3. the river's tithe. Weeks passed. The trail didn't just go cold, it froze solid. Elkins organized search parties. They combed the 200 acres with dogs, ATVs, and grim determination. Tina Inman gave the dogs Clark's unwashed clothes, hoping the bloodhounds could pick up a scent in the damp air. A dog's nose is a miracle of evolution, 600 times more powerful than a human's. They can smell fear, they can smell the past. But on the Leninger Ranch, they smelled nothing. No blood, no shallow grave, no Clark Calhoun. The poster of Clark, a grainy photo of a man with a gentle smile and a rough past, faded on telephone poles around Olympia. The rain washed the ink until his face was a ghostly blur. Then, the geography shifted. 2 counties away, the Cowlitz River winds its way through the landscape like a dark vein. It is a place of deep currents and bottomless mud. 2 environmental scientists, out for a routine water sampling, spotted something that didn't belong among the driftwood and river stones. It was half submerged in the silt, a shape that was undeniably human. Detective Lorenzo Gladstone of the Cowlitz County Sheriff's Office got the call. He was a younger man than Elkins, sharp and methodical. He stood on the riverbank, watching the recovery team pull the body from the muck. The corpse was bloated, battered by the river's rocks, skin pale and waxy. No ID, no wallet, just a man stripped of his identity by death and water. But as they cleaned the mud from the hand, something glinted in the gray light. A ring, turquoise and silver, unique. Gladstone's mind clicked. He had seen the bolo be on the lookout from Thurston County. He pulled out his phone. "Ben," Gladstone said when Elkins picked up. "I think we found him. Clark Calhoun? Turquoise ring. Fits the description. But Ben, this isn't a drowning. This isn't an accident. Tell me," Elkins said, his voice tightening. "He didn't just fall in. He's got 2 large caliber gunshot wounds. Someone put him in the water to wash him away." Elkins closed his eyes for a brief moment. The missing person case was over. The homicide investigation had begun. "I'm coming down," Elkins said. At the morgue, the story of Clark Calhoun's final moments was written in flesh and bone. The medical examiner extracted a bullet, a .45 caliber round, heavy, lethal, a man-stopper. "We have a bullet," Elkins said, looking at the twisted piece of lead in the evidence bag. "That means we have a gun to look for. And if we have a gun, we have a shooter." The realization hit them both. The river flowed miles away from the ranch. This was a disposal. Someone had driven Clark here, or driven his body here. This required planning. It required effort. Clark didn't walk to Cowlitz County, Elkins mused. Someone took him for a ride. Chapter 4. The Raid. The investigation pivoted back to the ranch, focusing with laser intensity on the Leninger family. The Mr.X theory was evaporating like mist in the sun. The geography of the crime pointed to someone with a vehicle, someone with a motive, however petty. Elkins and Gladstone obtained a search warrant. The target, the Leninger residence. Specifically, they were looking for a .45 caliber handgun. The morning of the raid was tense. Police cruisers lined the driveway of the ranch, their lights silent but flashing, painting the wet trees in strokes of red and blue. Karen Kane, Jeremy's mother, answered the door. She looked confused, defensive. "We're looking for evidence related to Clark Calhoun," Elkins said, presenting the warrant. "Clark?" Karen frowned. "My husband told me he moved to California. He said Clark just up and left." Elkins exchanged a glance with Gladstone. "California. Another lie. First Mr.X, now the Golden State." The stories were fracturing. "Ma'am, Clark isn't in California," Elkins said softly. "We found his body in the Cowlitz River. He was murdered." The color drained from Karen's face. Shock, genuine and raw. But before she could process it, the sound of a truck roaring up the driveway shattered the moment. Joel Leninger, the father, the patriarch, he didn't park the truck, he abandoned it. He stormed toward the house, a bull seeing red. "What the hell is going on here?" Joel screamed, his face flushed with rage. "Get off my property. You have no right." "Sir, we have a warrant." "I don't give a damn about your warrant. Get out! Get your ass off my land!" Joel was a big man, fueled by a mixture of fear and entitlement. He lunged at the deputies, arms flailing. "Threat pattern!" a deputy shouted. "Back off, sir." Joel didn't back off. He swung. It took 5 deputies to bring him down. The mud of his own driveway coated his face as they cuffed him. "You're under arrest for obstruction of justice," Sergeant Price stated. Breathless, inside the house, the silence returned. The search began. In Joel's bedroom, the father's sanctuary, Detective Gladstone opened a drawer, empty. But next to it, a holster. Leather, worn, shaped for a large semi-automatic pistol. And inside the magazine pouch, ammunition, .45 caliber. Elkins held up the magazine. Same caliber as the bullet in Clark. But where is the gun? They questioned Joel at the station. He was calmer now, the adrenaline dump leaving him sullen. "I don't have a .45, Joel grunted. "I reported it missing months ago. September. Check the records." Elkins checked. He was telling the truth. A report had been filed. The gun was stolen. "Convenient," Elkins muttered. "You lose a gun that happens to be the same caliber used to kill a man on your property months later." Joel made bail immediately. He walked out of the station with a smirk. They had skinny evidence. No gun, no DNA linking Joel directly. Just an empty holster and a screaming match. But Elkins knew that anger like Joel's usually covered up fear. What was he protecting? Or who? Chapter 5. The Crack in the Armor. The case was stalling again. They had a body, a suspicious family, and a missing murder weapon. They needed a voice, someone to say ouch in the darkness. Elkins went back to Randy, the nervous friend, the liar. This time, Elkins didn't play the nice guy. He brought the weight of the murder charge into the room. "Clark is dead, Randy. 2 shots. Dumped in a river. This isn't about missing fencing anymore. This is life in prison. And if you're covering for someone, you're going down with them." Randy broke. It wasn't a shatter. It was a crumbling. He slumped in his chair, putting his head in his hands. I lied," Randy whispered. "Before. Tell me." Clark and Jeremy. They hated each other. It wasn't no issues. Jeremy despised him. He thought Clark was a leech, thought he was taking advantage of his uncle, living for free, not working hard enough. And the money. Jeremy was obsessed with that $150. He wouldn't shut up about it. "Why did you lie to me, Randy?" "Because I live there. I work there. I was scared I'd lose my job, lose my home." "There's more," Elkins pressed. "I can see it in your face." Randy looked up, eyes wide. A few nights before Clark disappeared, there was a party. I heard Jeremy talking to his friend, Tyler. Jeremy was drunk, ranting. He said you could bury a body on the ranch and nobody would ever know. He was talking about how to get rid of things. Elkins felt the rush. This was it. Premeditation. Who is Tyler? Tyler Frazier. Just a buddy of his. Elkins brought Tyler in. Tyler was younger, tougher, denying everything. "I was with my girlfriend. I don't know nothing about burying bodies." Tyler was a dead end, but he pointed the compass back to Jeremy. The circle was tightening. Then, the breakthrough came not from interrogation, but from technology. "Big Brother is watching," Elkins said, holding up a stack of papers Jeremy Leninger's cell phone records. The data didn't lie. On the night of the murder, Jeremy's phone didn't stay at the ranch. It traveled. It pinged off towers moving south. It traced a path directly from the ranch to the Cowlitz River, right to the spot where Clark was found. And it didn't travel alone. "Look at this." Gladstone pointed to the map. "He stops here. Longview. For 20 minutes. Whose house is that?" John Perry. Another friend. And then both phones, Jeremy's and John Perry's, moved together. To the river. And back. Elkins smiled, a cold, predatory smile. Jeremy didn't do this alone. He needed help lifting the body. He needed a partner. Chapter 6. The Weakest Link. John Perry lived in a small apartment in Longview. He was the loose thread in the sweater. If they pulled him, the whole thing would unravel. They picked him up quietly. No sirens. Just a knock on the door and a ride to the station. John Perry sat in the interrogation room. He was sweating. He looked like a man who had been waiting for this knock for months. "I'm looking at 25 to life, John," Elkins said, laying it out. "Conspiracy to commit murder. Accessory after the fact. Unless what?" John croaked. "Unless you weren't the shooter. Unless you were just dragged along." John Perry closed his eyes. He saw the river again. He saw the body. "I didn't want to be part of it," John said, his voice trembling. "I swear, Jeremy, he just called me." "Tell me the story, John. From the beginning." And John Perry began to speak. He painted the picture that Elkins had been trying to see for months. Jeremy texted me, John said. He said, "Come over. We're going to go beat someone's ass." I thought it was just a fight. You know, get his money back. Just tough guy stuff. "So you went to the ranch?" "Yeah. I was in the truck. Jeremy was driving. Clark, he was in the passenger seat. He didn't know, man. He didn't know anything. He thought they were friends. He thought they were going to smoke weed." Elkins wrote furiously. "The betrayal." Jeremy drove to a quiet spot, John continued, tears streaming down his face now. He stopped the truck, said, "Everybody get out. We got out." Jeremy told me to go back to the cab and get the weed. I turned around. John sobbed. I heard shots. Boom, boom, 4 of them, loud. I turned back around, and Clark was on the ground. Jeremy was standing over him, smoke coming out of the gun. What did Jeremy look like? He looked crazy. Evil. He had this look in his eyes, like he enjoyed it. He pointed the gun at me and said, "Help me load him up." "And you did?" "I was scared. He just killed a guy. I thought I was next. We wrapped him in a tarp, used a backhoe to lift him into the truck bed." Jeremy drove. I just sat there, praying. "To the river?" "Yeah." "The bridge." Jeremy just rolled him off. Like he was trash. Said nobody would ever find him. Said it was over. Elkins leaned back. The recorder hummed. The truth was out. The mountain had finally spoken through John Perry. Epilogue. Justice. The arrest was swift. Jeremy Leninger was taken into custody in Cowlitz County. He didn't fight like his father. He didn't scream. He maintained a stony, arrogant silence. The silence of a man who still couldn't believe he had been caught. But the evidence was a tidal wave. The ballistics, the cell tower data, the testimony of John Perry. The Mr.X was revealed to be nothing more than the dark impulse within Jeremy himself. Jeremy was convicted. 18 years in the Washington State Penitentiary. A life traded for $150 and a bruised ego. John Perry, for his cooperation and lesser role, received 12 months. Tina Inman stood outside the courtroom, the rain falling again. "He was a good man," she said to Elkins. "Clark? He was a teddy bear. He just wanted to be a dad again." "I know," Elkins said. "We got him, Tina. He's held accountable." Tina looked up at the gray sky, toward where Mount Rainier hid behind the clouds. "I wish I could tell him I loved him one last time. But knowing Jeremy is put away, it helps. It brings peace." Elkins watched her walk away. He got back into his car. The radio crackled with another call, another case, another secret waiting to be dug up. He looked at his reflection in the rearview mirror. He was older, tireder, but the job was done. He had stood in Clark Calhoun's shoes because Clark couldn't anymore. He had been the voice for the dead. "I have been where you fear to be," Elkins whispered the lines of the old poem, starting the engine. "I have seen what you fear to see. I have done what you fear to do." He drove off, leaving the ranch behind, a silent stage where a tragedy had played out, now empty except for the ghosts and the rain. End of Part 1. The Shadow of Rainier, based on the events of Thurston County case number 16 to 6893, prologue. The Silent Sentinel. The mountain did not care. Mount Rainier loomed over Thurston County, Washington, a white-capped titan piercing the gray shroud of the sky. To the tourists, it was a postcard, a breathtaking monument of nature's grandeur. But to the locals, specifically those who wore the badge, the mountain was a silent witness. It watched over the deep ravines, the thick, moss-choked forests, and the rushing rivers that carried meltwater and secrets down to the sea. The beauty of the Pacific Northwest was deceptive. The lush green hid decay. The rain washed away blood, but it couldn't wash away the sins committed in the dark. It was late December, the time of year when the sun was a rumor and the damp cold settled into your marrow. Down by the Cowlitz River, 2 counties away from the mountain's base, the water was murky, swollen with winter runoff. 2 environmental scientists were trudging through the mud, their breath pluming in the frigid air, focused on water samples. They were looking for pollutants. They found humanity, or rather, what was left of it. Half submerged in the silt, caught in the skeletal embrace of driftwood, was a shape that didn't belong. It wasn't a log. It wasn't debris. It was the pale, unmistakable form of a man. The river had tried to take him, to grind him down into the earth, but the silt had preserved him just enough to tell a story. A silver and turquoise ring glinted dully on a cold finger. The mountain watched from the distance, indifferent. But for the detectives who were about to answer the call, the silence was over. The hunt had begun. Chapter 1. The Vanishing. Detective Ben Elkins of the Thurston County Sheriff's Office was a man who had made a career out of staring into the abyss. 28 years in law enforcement chisels away a person's naivety, leaving behind a hard, weathered skepticism. He didn't just solve crimes, he absorbed them. He knew that evil wasn't always a monster under the bed. Sometimes it was just a neighbor, a friend, or a boy with a grudge. The call had come in as a routine missing persons report. A woman named Tina Inman, voice trembling with a mixture of fear and frustration, reported that her boyfriend, Clark Calhoun, hadn't come home. Elkins drove out to the ranch. It was a sprawling 100-acre property at the base of the mountain, owned by the Leininger family. It was the kind of place where a man could get lost, or hide, or disappear. Tina was waiting for him. She looked worn out, the stress of 3 days etching lines around her eyes. He wouldn't just leave, Tina insisted, wringing her hands. Clark had his demons, sure, he had a hard life, but he was turning it around. He was happy here. Elkins took notes, his eyes scanning the property. Tell me about the last time you saw him. It was the 28th, she said. We were getting ready to go into town. Me, Clark, and our friend Randy. We were literally walking to the car. And then Jeremy rode up. The name hung in the air. Jeremy Leininger, the son of the owners, the prince of the ranch. He was on a tractor, Tina continued. He stopped us. He said, "Hey, Clark, I need you to stay back. I need help fixing some fences." Clark, he was a good guy. He wanted to pull his weight. The owners were letting us park his trailer here for free. He felt he owed them, so he told me to go ahead, said he'd catch up later. She looked at the empty driveway. I came back late. He wasn't in the trailer. I figured maybe he crashed at the main house, but the next morning, nothing. His wallet is here. His phone is here. The only thing missing is him. Elkins frowned. Did he have enemies? Anyone looking for him? Tina hesitated. Not enemies, but... There was tension. A few days ago, one of the owners mentioned that Jeremy was angry. He claimed he was missing $150 from his truck. He blamed Clark. Over $150? Elkins asked, raising an eyebrow. Jeremy was convinced Clark stole it. Clark swore he didn't. But Jeremy, he holds on to things. Elkins pocketed his notebook. He had a name now, Jeremy Leininger. And he had a motive, however petty it seemed. In Elkins' experience, people had been killed for far less than $150. It wasn't about the money, it was about the disrespect. Chapter 2. The Prince of the Ranch. Jeremy Leininger did not look like a killer. He looked like a farm kid, young, sturdy, perhaps a bit too comfortable in his own skin. When Elkins found him, Jeremy was eager to talk, almost too eager. Elkins employed a classic tactic, the office on wheels. He invited Jeremy into his unmarked car. It was a psychological play, removing the subject from their territory and placing them in a confined space where the law was the only authority. So, Jeremy, Elkins started, keeping his tone casual. Walk me through the 28th. You asked Clark to help with fences? Jeremy nodded, his face open and guileless. Yeah, we did some work. And then, well, Clark said he had to go. Go where? He said he had to meet someone down at the front gate. A friend. Did he give a name? Jeremy shrugged. No, just a friend. Some guy. Maybe a dealer? I don't know. Clark had a past, you know? Elkins' internal radar pinged. The mysterious stranger. It was the oldest lie in the book. Whenever a suspect needed a victim to disappear, they invented a phantom, Mr.X, a nameless, faceless entity that conveniently walked the victim off the stage. And the money? Elkins pressed. I heard you were upset about $150 missing from your truck. Jeremy's expression didn't flicker, but his eyes went cold for a fraction of a second. Oh, that? It was nothing. I was annoyed, sure, but I talked to Clark. We squashed it. No big deal. Liar, Elkins thought. He didn't say it. Instead, he thanked Jeremy and let him go. As Jeremy walked back toward the main house, Elkins watched him. The kid walked with a swagger, the confidence of someone who believes they are untouchable because of their last name. Elkins organized a search party. Deputies, volunteers, and cadaver dogs scoured the 200 acres. The dogs, with noses sensitive enough to smell a drop of blood in a swimming pool, found nothing. No shallow grave, no shreds of clothing. Clark Calhoun had vanished into thin air, or, Elkins suspected, he had been moved. Chapter 3. The Body in the Silt. Weeks passed. The trail was growing cold, dampening like the rotting leaves on the forest floor. But the river never stops moving, and the river eventually gives up its dead. Detective Lorenzo Gladstone of Cowlitz County was staring at a body on a metal slab. The autopsy room was sterile and cold, a sharp contrast to the muddy riverbank where the man had been found. The environmental scientists had found him 2 counties away. The water had stripped him of his dignity, but not his identity. The turquoise ring was the key. Gladstone picked up the phone. Thurston County? Get me Ben Elkins. When Elkins heard the news, he didn't feel relief. He felt the heavy weight of confirmation. It's a homicide, Ben, Gladstone said, his voice crackling over the line. He didn't drown. He didn't have a heart attack. Let me guess, Elkins said, staring at the rain streaking his office window. Gunshot wounds, 2 large caliber, looks like a .45. And he was wrapped. Someone tried to weigh him down, but the river churned him up. Elkins hung up. The missing persons case was closed. Case number 16 to 6893 was now a murder investigation. The timeline snapped into focus. Clark didn't walk away to meet a mysterious friend. He was executed. And if he was found 2 counties away, someone had transported him. Someone with a truck. Someone with a reason to hate him. Elkins thought of the $150. He thought of the arrogance in Jeremy Leininger's eyes. It was time to go back to the ranch. Chapter 4. The Raid. The Leininger property felt different now. It wasn't just a farm. It was a crime scene that had been scrubbed clean. Elkins didn't go alone this time. He brought a team, and he brought a warrant. They weren't just looking for Clark anymore. They were looking for the mechanism of his death. A .45 caliber handgun. They targeted the home of Joel and Karen Leininger, Jeremy's parents. They owned the majority of the land. They were the power behind the throne. Karen was shocked. Murder? My husband told me Clark moved to California. Elkins paused. California? Yes. That's what Joel said. Another lie. First Mr.X at the gate, now a sudden move to California. The family was spinning narratives, but they hadn't coordinated their stories. The search was methodical. Deputies turned over mattresses, emptied drawers. In Joel's bedroom, tucked away, they found a holster. Leather, worn, empty. What fits in this? A deputy asked Karen. She looked nervous. A gun. Joel's gun. Where is it? I don't know. Outside, the tranquility of the ranch was shattered by the roar of an engine. Joel Leininger had arrived. He slammed his truck door, his face a mask of fury. What the hell is going on here? Joel screamed, storming toward the deputies. Get off my property! You have no right! Sir, we have a warrant, Elkins said calmly, stepping between Joel and the house. I don't give a damn about your warrant. This is my land. Joel was a bull of a man, fueled by adrenaline and perhaps the terrifying realization that the walls were closing in. He lunged. It took 5 deputies to subdue him, a chaotic scuffle of shouting and grappling in the mud. You're under arrest for obstruction, Elkins stated as the cuffs clicked shut. Later, in the interrogation room, Joel was less a bull and more a cornered animal. He played the confused father. The gun? Joel stammered. I haven't seen that gun in months. I lost it. I reported it missing back in September. Elkins checked the records. Joel had indeed reported a .45 caliber handgun missing months ago. It was a convenient alibi, or a pre-planned safeguard. Joel posted bail and walked out. They had skinny evidence, an empty holster, and an angry father. It wasn't enough for a murder charge. Not yet. Elkins needed someone to break. Chapter 5. The Weakest Link. The circle of silence around Jeremy Leininger was tight, but fear is a powerful solvent. Elkins turned his attention back to Randy, the friend who had been in the car with Tina that night. Randy had been quiet. Too quiet. Randy, Elkins said, sitting across from him in the interview room. We found Clark. He was shot. He was dumped in a river like garbage. Randy looked down at his hands. He was trembling. "You told me everyone got along," Elkins said, his voice dropping to a low growl. "You lied to me, Randy. And in a murder investigation, lying makes you an accessory," Randy cracked. The dam broke. "I was scared," Randy whispered. "Jeremy. He's crazy. He hated Clark. He hated him so much. Tell me, it wasn't just the money." Jeremy thought Clark was a leech. He thought he was taking advantage of his family. He called him lazy. He talked about hurting him. Did he ever talk about burying bodies? Randy looked up, eyes wide. "We were at a party. Jeremy and this guy, Tyler. They were drunk. They were talking about burying dead cows on the property. And then Jeremy said, you could probably bury a body out there too. Nobody would ever know." Elkins leaned back. Now they were getting somewhere. He brought in Tyler Frazier. Tyler tried to deny it, tried to spin the story, claiming he was with his girlfriend. But the inconsistency was there. The cracks in the foundation were spreading. But hearsay wasn't evidence. Elkins needed physical proof. He needed to place Jeremy at the river. He subpoenaed the cell phone records. Modern criminals often forget that they carry a tracking device in their pocket every second of the day. The data came back, a digital map of a murder. On the night of December 28th, Jeremy's phone didn't stay at the ranch. It traveled. It moved south, down Interstate 5. It pinged off towers in Cowlitz County. It traced a path directly to the spot where Clark's body was found. And it wasn't alone. Another phone traveled with it, a shadow. "Who is this?" Elkins asked the tech analyst, pointing to the second number. "Registered to a John Perry, lives in Longview." John Perry, a friend of Jeremy's, the real Mr.X. Chapter 6, The Confession. John Perry was a small-time guy, not built for the pressure of a homicide charge. When Elkins and Gladstone picked him up, he looked like he was about to vomit. "I didn't shoot him," Perry blurted out before they even sat down. "I didn't want any part of it." "Then tell us what happened, John," Elkins said. "This is your chance. You're either a witness or you're the killer. You choose." Perry chose. He spilled everything, the words tumbling out in a horrific rush. The night of December 28th. It was dark. The air smelled of impending snow. Jeremy had texted Perry, "Come over. We're going to handle some business." Perry thought they were just going to rough someone up, maybe scare Clark into giving the money back. He didn't know Jeremy had stolen his father's .45. Jeremy picked Clark up in his truck. "Hey Clark, thanks for fixing the fence. Hop in. Let's go smoke some weed." Clark, trusting, climbed into the passenger seat. Perry was in the back. They drove to a remote spot on the ranch. The darkness was absolute. "Get out!" Jeremy ordered. They all got out. Jeremy told Perry to grab the weed from the truck. Perry turned his back. Crack, 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 crack. 4 shots. Deafening in the silence of the valley. Perry spun around. Clark was on the ground. He wasn't moving. Jeremy stood over him. The .45 smoking in the cold air. He had a crazy look on his face, Perry told the detectives, his voice shaking, like he was gone. He looked at me and said, "Help me load him up." I said no. I said I didn't want no part of this. But he had the gun. Perry described the macabre scene that followed. Jeremy, fueled by adrenaline and madness, grabbed a broken tarp. He wrapped Clark's body. He used a backhoe farm equipment meant for earth and manure to scoop up the man he had just murdered and dump him into the bed of the truck like a sack of feed. They drove south. The silence in the truck was heavy, suffocating. Jeremy was calm. Perry was terrified. They reached the Cowlitz River. Jeremy backed the truck up to the edge. He rolled the body out. Splash. He thought it would just float away, Perry said quietly. He thought it would go to the ocean. He said, "No one will ever know." Chapter 7. The verdict. The arrest was swift. Armed with the cell phone data, the ballistic match from the bullet found in Clark's body, which matched the ammunition in Joel's holster, and Perry's eyewitness testimony, the Leininger prince was dethroned. Jeremy Leininger was arrested. He didn't confess. He maintained his innocence with the stubbornness of a child who believes that if they deny reality hard enough, it will change. But the mountain of evidence was insurmountable. The trial was a dissection of a senseless tragedy. The prosecutor painted a picture of a spoiled young man whose ego was so fragile that a dispute over $150 and a perception of laziness was enough to justify execution. The jury didn't buy the Mr.X story. They didn't buy the California lie. Jeremy Leininger was convicted of first-degree murder. The judge sentenced him to 18 years in the Washington State Penitentiary. John Perry, for his cooperation and his role as an accomplice who didn't pull the trigger, pled guilty to lesser charges and received 12 months. Epilogue: The empty chair. Tina Inman stood on the porch of the trailer, looking out at the mountain. The ranch was quiet now. The police tape was gone. The news vans had left. But Clark wasn't coming back. She thought about his daughter, who had hoped to reconnect. She thought about the plans they had made, the simple, quiet life Clark had wanted to build after years of struggle. He was a man who had made mistakes, but he was trying. He was a teddy bear, as his sister called him. He had walked into the darkness thinking he was helping a friend. He had died because of a boy's petty rage. In the end, Detective Elkins had done his job. He had solved the unsolvable. He had found justice for the dead. But as he drove away from Mount Rainier, watching the peak fade in his rearview mirror, he knew the truth that every detective carries. Justice is necessary. It is vital. But it is not a cure. It doesn't bring them back. The mountain remained, white and cold. A beautiful, indifferent tombstone overlooking the valley, where men do terrible things for little or no reason at all. End of case file. The Shadow of Rainier, a Thurston County novel. Part I, The Vanishing. Chapter 1, The Mountain's Whisper. The air at the base of Mount Rainier was a crystalline, brutal cold that late December, the kind that stung the nostrils and made the pine scent of the vast Washington wilderness feel sharp and metallic. Detective Ben Elkins, a man whose career spanned 28 years of grappling with society's darkest impulses, often found himself staring at the peak, a monstrous, silent god swaddled in permanent snow. It was a lie, that mountain. It promised permanence and majesty, an untouched Eden. But Elkins knew the truth. Human corruption, like water, always finds its way down from the high places. This particular patch of Eden was a sprawling, ill-kept ranch, pushing 200 acres of mud-churned pasture and ancient timberland, divided by a handshake agreement between two brothers. It was here, in the shadow of the mountain, that Elkins first heard the details of what would become the reference file, 16 to 6,893. He stood outside a cramped, aluminum travel trailer parked haphazardly near a rotting barn. The paint on the trailer was faded to the color of stale butter, and a thin wisp of smoke curled lazily from a poorly maintained stovepipe. The scene was less bucolic farm life and more last stop isolation. The woman waiting for him, Tina Inman, was kinetic with suppressed anxiety. She was a woman who'd known hard times, the worry lines etched deep around her eyes, but her gaze was fierce. "Detective Elkins?" she asked, her voice tight. "Thank you for coming. I know it's just a missing person, but Clark, he wouldn't do this." "We take every report seriously, Miss Inman," Elkins said, pulling his notebook, a battered leather object that felt heavy and substantial in his hand. "Let's start from the beginning. Your boyfriend, Clark Calhoun. When did you last see him?" Tina pulled the collar of her threadbare jacket higher, her eyes fixed on the empty spot where Clark's old rusty pickup truck should have been. 3 days ago, the 28th of December. We were getting ready to go into Olympia. Randy was going to come with us. Just shopping, you know. Get out of the trailer for a bit. Clark Calhoun, a man who, by all accounts, had been given a second chance, a place to park his trailer. A friendly hand from the ranch owners had simply vanished. He was 50-something, a man with a past, but one who was trying, according to Tina's tearful account, to find his way back to his estranged family. "And what stopped you?" Elkins prompted. "Jeremy," she said, spitting the name out with unconscious distaste. "Jeremy Leininger. He's the son of one of the owners. He came up on his tractor, all mud and noise, stopped us right by the main gate." She recounted the simple, seemingly innocent interruption. Jeremy had hailed Clark, needing his help of all things to build some new fences. A sudden, unexpected piece of ranch work. Clark, always ready to chip in, had agreed. He said, "I'll be back before you are, Tina." And he went off with Jeremy. Tina finished, her voice cracking. "Randy and I went shopping. I got back late, really late. I called out for him. 'Clark, I'm home.' Nothing. I figured he crashed in the bunkhouse or something. But the next morning, and the next, nothing." Elkins noted the details in his book. Clark Calhoun last seen with Jeremy Leninger, 28 Dexus, approximately 1,800 hours. Reason: fence work. He then asked the questions that separate a worried relative from a cold case investigator. What did he take with him? Wallet? Cell phone? That's the thing, detective. He didn't take his wallet. It's right there on the kitchen counter. Cash, cards, everything. And he doesn't have his own cell phone. He just uses mine if he needs to call his kids. He wouldn't leave the wallet. He just wouldn't. There was only one item missing that Tina could recall with certainty, an insignificant detail that seemed to hover in the cold air, a distinctive silver and turquoise ring that Clark often wore. Elkins nodded slowly. The lack of a wallet was a powerful indicator. People who leave voluntarily, who simply decide to walk away from their lives, do not leave their means of survival. This wasn't a vacation. It was a vanishing act, executed with chilling thoroughness. Miss Inman, did Clark have any enemies? Anyone who was angry with him, who might be out to get him? She hesitated, chewing on her lip, her eyes shifting towards the main ranch house visible in the distance. The mountain loomed, quiet and judgment-free, behind her. Not enemies, she said, her tone guarded. But there was a thing. A few days ago, one of the owners, Jeremy's mother, she mentioned Jeremy was complaining. He was missing $150 from his truck. He thought Clark took it. The first thread, a tiny, fragile string of motive woven into the fabric of the disappearance. A measly $150. Humans are capable of terrible things, Elkins thought, often with little or no motivation. But $150? That was a terrifyingly small price for a man's life. Thank you, Tina, Elkins said, handing her his card. Don't touch anything in the trailer. If you think of anything else, anything at all, even if it seems unimportant, you call me immediately. He left her standing there, a figure of profound loneliness, and walked back to his unmarked car. The case was no longer a simple missing persons report. It smelled like foul play. The cold around the trailer, Elkins realized, wasn't just the weather. Chapter 2. The Two Witnesses. Elkins lived by a creed written over decades of closing murder cases. You cannot rely on a single source. Tina Inman was worried, emotional, and compromised by her relationship with the missing man. Her story needed independent confirmation, or it was just a grief-stricken monologue. His first stop was Randy, the friend who had been in the car with Tina that night. Randy was found in a dusty garage bay, tinkering with a broken-down ATV. He was a man with hands permanently grimed with grease and a cautious, guarded demeanor. Detective Elkins, Randy said, wiping his hands on a rag. Sure, I got a minute. Clark, he's really missing, huh? Randy corroborated Tina's timeline perfectly. The three of them were leaving. Jeremy Leninger, on the tractor, had cut them off. Clark went with Jeremy. Tina and Randy drove away. Simple, factual. Did you notice any tension between Clark and Jeremy that day? Elkins asked, leaning against the cold metal of the ATV. Any bad blood? Randy gave a shrug that was too casual. Nah, everybody gets along fine here, detective. Clark keeps to himself, does his own thing. Jeremy does his own thing. No issues. Elkins paused, watching the man's eyes. They were honest, perhaps too honest. I understand there was a rumor that Jeremy thought Clark stole $150 from his truck. A small flicker of discomfort crossed Randy's face, quickly suppressed. He chuckled, a dry, rasping sound. Humph. That's news to me, detective. Never heard a thing about that. Lie. Or at least, an evasion. Tina Inman, worried and distracted, had mentioned it. Randy, calm and questioned, had denied any knowledge. Why? Was he trying to protect himself? To protect Clark? Or to protect Jeremy, a neighbor on the ranch? Elkins filed the anomaly away. The web was getting tangled, and the simplest explanation, Clark stole the money, and Jeremy was mad, was already being actively concealed. Next came Jeremy Leninger himself. Elkins preferred to conduct interviews on his own turf. A police station interview room was designed to wear down resistance. But for an initial field interview, a casual chat designed to glean information without raising alarms, Elkins chose his cruiser. It was his mobile office, a neutral space on foreign ground, where the windows were blacked out just enough, and the subtle presence of the microphone was a silent, unblinking third party. Jeremy was a young man, early 20s, with a restless energy that seemed out of place in the quiet vastness of the ranch. He was dressed in work boots and a Carhartt jacket, the uniform of the area. He slid into the passenger seat, closing the door on the biting cold. "Clark Calhoun," Elkins began, his voice level. "He was last seen with you, Jeremy. Walk me through that evening." Jeremy, to his credit, was cooperative, friendly even. He confirmed intercepting Clark for the fence work. They had been working for about an hour after Tina and Randy left. The sun was dipping behind the ridge, painting the sky in bruised colors. "We finished up by the north fence line, and Clark, he says he's got to go," Jeremy explained. "Said he had to meet somebody out at the main gate." Elkins's pen froze above the paper. "Meet someone? Who?" Jeremy shrugged, fiddling with a loose thread on his jacket. "Didn't say. Just said he had to go meet a friend. Down at the gate. Mr.X. Jeremy had just introduced a ghost into the investigation. A mysterious friend, an unexplained third party, appearing at dusk on a remote road. It was a perfect, convenient lie, designed to pass the last seen torch to an unknown, untraceable figure. The antenna on Elkins's neck didn't just go up. It whirred like a radar dish scanning the horizon. "A friend," Elkins repeated, drawing out the word. "Did this friend drive up? Did you see the vehicle?" "Nah, I left him there." Turned the tractor around, headed back to the barn. He was walking toward the road when I last saw him. Jeremy paused, then added too casually, "He looked fine, like he had somewhere he needed to be." Then Elkins pivoted to the rumor. "Jeremy, let's talk about that money. The $150 you thought was missing from your truck. Did you talk to Clark about it?" Jeremy downplayed it instantly, mirroring Randy's earlier discomfort, but with a shade more defensiveness. "Ah, that was nothing. Just a misunderstanding. Maybe I misplaced it. Clark and I, we didn't have a problem, Detective. We were working together that night, weren't we?" Jeremy, Elkins noted, was affable, helpful, and transparently lying about the only two key facts in the case: the conflict with Clark and the vanishing. Everything he said was a deflection, a polite invitation to look somewhere else. Elkins thanked him, let him out, and watched him walk toward the main house. Jeremy Leninger had nothing to hide, yet his every statement was a calculated obstruction. He was the last known person to see Clark Calhoun alive, and he was the one who had conjured the elusive Mr.X, the ghost who would allow the detective to walk away and leave Jeremy clean. Elkins sat in the silence of the cruiser. The missing ring, the absent wallet, the rumor of stolen money, the quick, convenient lie of Mr.X. It was all a circle, and Jeremy Leninger stood right in the center of it. Chapter 3. The search for a body. The initial investigation was stalled. The narrative was simple, but the evidence was non-existent. Clark Calhoun had gone to build a fence. He was last seen walking toward the main road to meet an unidentified person. He was gone. Jeremy's Mr.X theory, while transparently false to Elkins, provided a plausible scenario for accidental death. Perhaps Clark had met his friend, gone drinking, wandered into the woods, and succumbed to hypothermia, which was a very real risk in the late winter elements of the foothills. To guard against that single, less sinister possibility, Elkins authorized a full search party. For several hours, deputies from the Thurston County Sheriff's Office, led by Elkins, tramped across the 200 acres of the ranch. They were joined by a specialized rescue dog organization. Tina Inman, pale and grim-faced, provided them with a pair of Clark's socks and an old denim shirt garments, saturated with the scent of the missing man. The dogs were phenomenal creatures, their olfactory sense 600 times sharper than any human's. They could scent a ghost on the wind. The handlers let them run the perimeter, then the fields, then the dense, dark thickets of forest that bordered the property. Elkins walked the property with a sense of dread, his boots sinking into the wet, cold mud. He was looking for any indicator, a scuff mark, a discarded cigarette, a patch of disturbed earth, or worse, a drop of blood against the gray-brown mud. They found nothing. No clothing, no footprints leading away from the property and not returning. No sign of a struggle, no blood. The dogs, after hours of fruitless searching, simply pulled their handlers back, unable to pick up a sustained track. It was as if Clark Calhoun had been lifted into the sky by some silent, massive machine. "He's just not here, Detective," the lead handler finally told Elkins, shaking his head. Elkins stood at the edge of the property line, looking toward the distant peak of Rainier. If the mountain was a silent god, it was a cruel one. It hid things beautifully. The official search was called off. The case was now a missing persons bulletin, flyers put up all over town. Clark's kind, slightly weathered face staring out from telephone poles and grocery store windows. For Tina's sake, and for Clark's family, who were only just beginning to try and reconnect with him after years of estrangement, the effort had to be visible. But Elkins knew the unspoken truth that haunted every seasoned detective. Missing persons are generally found relatively quickly. If they're not found quickly, they didn't come home because they can't. Clark couldn't come home because someone had ensured he couldn't, and that someone was not Mr. X. Chapter 4. 2 counties away. Weeks bled into January and then February. The case file grew heavy with fruitless interviews, phone records that led nowhere, and dead-end tips generated by the flyers. Elkins felt the familiar, cold pressure of investigating in total darkness. You are punching blind, he thought, hoping someone will say, ouch. Then the mountain spoke, not with fire and ice, but with water. 2 environmental scientists, conducting routine water samples in a river 2 counties away from Thurston, in the jurisdiction of Cowlitz County, noticed something half submerged in the thick, glacial mud flow at the river bottom. Half buried in the silt was the body of a Caucasian male. Detective Lorenzo Gladstone of the Cowlitz County Sheriff's Office caught the call. Gladstone was 6 years younger than Elkins, but equally seasoned in the grim commerce of the dead. His first goal, as always, was identification. The river was miles from any major highway, a difficult, forgotten place. The body was caked in mud, bloated, and stripped of shoes and socks by the river's current. It had been traveling, but as the mud was carefully washed away, Gladstone saw the glint of silver on one hand. He leaned closer. It was a turquoise and silver ring. A bolo bee on the lookout for a missing person from Thurston County had been floating in the system for weeks. A missing person named Clark Calhoun, and that bolo mentioned a distinctive turquoise and silver ring. My, Gladstone thought, standing in the cold river. How'd you get here from 2 counties away, Clark? Gladstone made the call. Ben, Lorenzo Gladstone down in Cowlitz. Clark Calhoun just turned up. Well, parts of him. Elkins drove down immediately. The scene at the Cowlitz County Coroner's office was sterile and heartbreaking. The silt was hosed away gently, revealing the damage the river had done, scrapes and cuts from being hung up on rocks during his long, silent journey. But once the forensic technicians completed the careful cleaning, the river's injuries became secondary. The cause of death was no longer a mystery, and it was certainly not hypothermia. That'll do it, the coroner murmured, pointing. Clark Calhoun had 2 large caliber gunshot wounds to the torso. The case was no longer a disappearance. It was a homicide, and the location 2 counties away in a riverbed screamed of a careful, desperate dumping. The medical examiner, working with meticulous care, retrieved one of the bullets from the victim. It was a .45 caliber round. The significance was immediate and enormous. They now had a specific weapon to hunt for. Elkins felt the old, cold thrill of the chase. They were no longer punching in the dark. Someone had said, ouch, and Elkins had a light to shine. The investigation had dramatically changed personality. It was no longer about where Clark was, but who had put him there, and why they had chosen the water to conceal their crime. And everything, every single dark tributary, flowed back to the 100-acre farm at the base of Mount Rainier. The lazy Susan of suspects was still the same Tina, Randy, and Jeremy Leninger, but now one of them was holding a .45 caliber gun. Chapter 5. The primary suspect. The circle tightened immediately around Jeremy Leninger. He was the last person Clark was confirmed to be with. The fence work was the perfect pretext to lure him away from the trailer and the watchful eye of Tina. Elkins returned to Thurston County, no longer following a missing person, but hunting a murderer. The ranch, home to the two-brother partnership, seemed to shrink and become sinister. He needed to re-interview everyone, not as witnesses, but as suspects whose lies now carried the weight of capital crimes. With the discovery of the .45 caliber bullet, the search needed to be surgical. Elkins immediately secured a search warrant for the residence of Jeremy Leninger. Jeremy lived with his parents, Joel and Karen Kane, who owned the half of the ranch that contained the houses. The execution of the search warrant was designed to be swift and unannounced, but the element of surprise was quickly lost. When the deputies arrived, they found Karen Kane, Jeremy's mother, at home. She was told the search was regarding the now found Clark Calhoun. What do you mean, found? Karen asked, her face draining of color. The detectives didn't mince words. Clark had been murdered. Shot twice. Karen was visibly shaken. That's impossible. My husband told me he moved to California. California. Elkins and Gladstone exchanged a look. Why would her husband Joel lie to his wife that their missing neighbor, whom their son had last seen, had simply relocated to California? It was a flimsy, immediate deflection. As the deputies began to execute the warrant, searching Jeremy's